This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome back to History for Cocktail Parties. I'm Thornton Kennedy, here with my co-host,
James Ottley.
James, how are you today?
Doing great, man. How about yourself?
I am so excited about today's episode.
Me too.
This is a city I have visited probably more than any other city in the United States of America in the world.
And what city would that be?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Exactly.
A city steeped in history.
So steeped.
And we will talk about everything from the city's founding in 1670 to its cozy relationship with pirates.
That's right.
And come all the way to Fort Sumter, which perhaps arguably is one of the most historic sites in the South.
For sure. I think we might prove that today.
And our signature cocktail today, courtesy of my wife, Lori, shout out Lori Kennedy, is a Charleston Bloody Mary mix. It's made in Charleston. And actually, my daughter is a student at College of Charleston.
How about that?
And I was like, hey, Virginia, what's a good Charleston cocktail?
Yeah.
And without missing a beat, she was like a Bloody Mary.
That's a good point.
We had some good ones.
Yeah, we had some good ones, good runners up from some of our listeners who were Charleston residents or Charleston adjacent. I think we had Planters Punch, Low Country Lemonade.
Charleston Light Dragoon Punch.
Have not heard of that.
That was so incredibly complicated that way above my pay grade.
I think this was a smart choice.
Now, my second runner-up was a rum with gunpowder in it, lit on fire, and drink it in a single gulp, which was the preferred drink of Blackbeard the pirate.
Come on, really? Nice. Well done.
Get into it. So before we get into our episode, let me tell you a little bit about our sponsors. Business is serious, but who wants serious, stodgy marketing? Check out our friends at Play, a full-service advertising agency. They're deep in the mix with AI and digital know-how, driving more people to your door. And whether it's IRL, in real life, or virtual, Play ensures the right people find you and buy what you're selling. See their many case studies at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com, and start growing your business today.
We really appreciate your support.
Usually I kind of give you a little needling about starting at the begin. But once again, with history,
where else do you start?
Where else do you start but with the founding of Charlestown in the Carolina colony, which happened at the same time, by a group called the Lords Proprietors, 1670. And the most remarkable thing to me, James, is that the gift was all the land between Virginia, which was British, and Florida, which was Spanish, the coastal area all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's huge.
And when Georgia was founded, they obviously they carved Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia all out, but same thing. It went all the way to the Pacific
Ocean.
Yeah,
it's remarkable. So why this incredible gift for these Lords Proprietors?
Let's hear it.
It's a tale of two kings.
Which is appropriate, time-wise, given we've just had no King's Day. Was this on purpose?
Just to put a little timestamp on us.
That's right.
No King's protests. The first king is Charles I. 1625 to 1649 was his reign. And he was problematic. And he was problematic because he believed in the divine right of kings, which is very much in contrast to the Magna Carta, which had been signed in 1215, which is the royal charter guaranteeing political liberties and subjected the king to the rule of law. Charles I did not agree with this sentiment at all. So he starts trying to get the Scots to adhere to the Anglican liturgy. The Scots rebel.
Not having any of it.
He goes to Parliament and says, look, these guys are rebelling against me. They're starting to take land in northern England. And so he says, I need an army to go after these guys. Parliament says, hey, wait a minute. You don't get an army. We get the army.
Okay.
He does not agree. He goes to Parliament and he arrests 5 members for treason with armed guards.
God.
And he really sets off the English Revolution.
English Civil War?
English Civil War,
Yeah.
English Revolution,
Okay.
the Puritanical War. I mean, there are all kinds of names for these. They're basically three different conflicts that
Okay.
all stretch into one thing. And the representative of the parliamentarians is
Cromwell.
Oliver Cromwell, the great statesman, politician, soldier, no military experience.
No kidding.
Yeah, none,
Huh.
except for that he is apparently brilliant. And he leads the parliamentary forces against King Charles I, and he is victorious.
I've got a little bookmark there, a way to kind of bring it back to the Coca-Cola Company.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So apparently there was a distant ancestor of Coca-Cola founder Asa Candler who fought in that English Civil War. And he actually defended his village against Cromwell's army and was later awarded a castle for it, and he became landed aristocracy. This was by Charles II.
Under the Cromwell.
Well, later on, under Charles II.
Okay.
Because he defended against Cromwell. And this castle was called Callan, and I'll come back to that in a second. Yeah, I think you get it. And so the castle was in Callan, Ireland, and but his son Daniel was I want to say a ne'er-do-well. He shocked the family by marrying an Irish Catholic woman and lost his inheritance. And it was this Daniel that left for America, ended up in Wrightsboro, Georgia, and I believe that was Asa Candler's great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather. And again, Asa Candler founded the
That's how the Coca-Cola family comes to be in Georgia.
That's right. And that's how they came to name Callanwald, the museum, which was, I believe, Howard Candler's home or mansion, and it's Callanwald after the castle.
Unbelievable. What a great local twist
there you
to
go.
A British story. So Charles I is defeated. He is sentenced to death for high treason. This is the King of England.
Yeah.
Sentenced to death for high treason. 59 people sign his death warrant. Cromwell's signature is third. Huge crowd gathers to see him beheaded, the king beheaded on January 30th, 1649. Afterwards, it is claimed the guards protecting the king's body saw Cromwell lurking around and muttering to himself, "'Twas a cruel necessity. 'Twas a cruel necessity." So Cromwell, this is going to be important in the character of Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Because Oliver Cromwell becomes the Lord Protectorate of England, and he instills puritanical rule.
Complete dictator, right?
Complete dictator. Under his rule, sports and entertainment are banned, theaters and inns are closed, plain dress was enforced, people found to be doing unnecessary work on Sunday could be put in the stocks. Just a complete downer.
Yeah.
Just take away all
joy. Does not sound like a lot of fun.
No music, no anything. Just a very staid lifestyle.
But, it's interesting. I heard that he actually had, even though he outlawed music for other people or his subjects, he kept a private band in his own residence.
Isn't that always the case?
Exactly.
And they're just to build on that, he made Christmas purely a religious holiday. So no decorations, no music, no roasted goose. I mean, all those traditions, he made them go away.
Apparently he thought that was like a, holdover, the Catholic holdover, because they were rowdy. Before this, it was rowdy affair, and a drunken holiday, that kind of thing. And he didn't want any part of that.
Yeah. But to your point, at his daughter's wedding, they had music, they had entertainment, they had everything. So England became a joyless republic. It was no longer the jolly old England. There was no jolly. It was a miserable place to live. Now, it is important that Charles II, when his father is executed and loses the war, he flees England and goes to France and goes to Paris, and he lives a very bacchanalian lifestyle. He's a rich young prince. He goes to all the brothels. He is just
living it up.
He is having the best time, as people in France do. He becomes very
joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre. He falls in love with the lifestyle. And he is recognized as king by a few provinces. So a few places still recognize Charles II as
no
the
kidding.
king.
Okay.
Cromwell dies in 1658 of natural causes, and he's buried with the kings and queens in Westminster Abbey. Quotation marks, not for long.
Not for long.
When he dies, there's a bit of the leader behind him is not very strong. England loses its footing a little bit. It's concerned that it's going to fall into complete anarchy. And so there's this negotiated bringing Charles II back and restoring the monarchy.
Oh, before we get, can I throw in this one little tidbit, which I thought was kind of interesting? This is on Cromwell. It's from Cromwell that we get the expression warts and all. He said that to somebody that was painting his portrait. He said, go ahead and paint me warts and all. And that's where that expression comes from.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because when you look at portraits of Charles I and Charles II, it is so over the top. It's a gorgeous man with these long flowing hair and the pantaloons. It's just this overly, today we would call it like touched up.
Right. Right.
So he would be very much counter. And I believe
that would make sense, right?
That was really the first representative republic, even though it didn't work.
Yeah.
And Cromwell ended up being a dictator.
Yeah.
Which happens. That was the first time there'd been a government established for the people.
I'll give that to you.
It was a remarkable moment in history, but they quickly restore the monarchy. And man, Charles comes back from Paris and he is in a great mood. He is excited to be back. The English court falls into complete bacchanal. It is nothing but parties and swearing and all of the things that go along with.
He reopens the taverns, right?
All the taverns, all the theaters, this is really where you get jolly old England from.
Okay.
Jolly old England is from the restoration of Charles II, and he just makes England this incredible place to live, and everyone has a great time.
Especially him, right? He has a pretty good sex life, doesn't
he? He fathers at least 12 illegitimate children, perhaps dozens more. He may have had as many as 100 children.
100 children.
When it gets to the end of it. He had a great, great time. Did not forgive Cromwell, though.
Yeah.
Because what he does with, you know what he does with Cromwell?
I do. I sure do.
Cromwell's dead.
Yeah.
What does he do?
For 4 years, right?
For 4 years.
Yeah. He digs up the corpse, right? And hangs him posthumously.
Yeah.
And beheads him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they stick the head, Cromwell's head, on a stake, and it's or on a spike, and it's apparently hung above Westminster Hall for like 25 years. Gets blown down by a storm, and then his head is passed around for like the next 300 years in private collections. And then apparently it took until like the 1960s for his head to be recovered and actually buried. I don't know if it was buried in the same place with his body. But
I mean, it's crazy. You can't make that up.
Yeah. I didn't make it.
He had the body exhumed.
Yeah.
And beheaded.
Yes.
Hung.
Yeah. He carried a grudge.
And in his, the fact that Cromwell won and beheaded his father he also rounded
payback.
up all of the Cromwell supporters, which is why I asked that question with the candlers.
Yeah.
He rounded up all the Cromwell parliamentarians and had them executed.
Right.
So he got rid of all of them. And that's where our dear friend, Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper, the Earl of Shaftesbury, comes in.
Okay.
Because he was one of these 8 men that were in Parliament that helped negotiate Charles II's return. He had been in Cromwell's cabinet. He had had some success there, but he turncoats and supports Charles's return. And he is the one who finances the voyage to this new colony of Carolina. And in keeping with the king's reputation for debauchery, Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper was well acquainted with London's brothels.
Okay.
There are plays that mention Cooper's lifestyle and how much he loved to be among the women. And one reference, the king refers to him as the greatest whoremaster in all of England.
That's a title. That's quite a title, indeed.
And this, of course, is the man who found Charleston.
Right. Is the Cooper River, is that named after him?
That is correct.
Okay.
So if you today on either side of the peninsula, there's the Ashley River and there's the Cooper River, and those are both named in honor of Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper,
the greatest whoremaster in England.
So the names, Carolina, is actually Latin for Corylus, or Corylus.
Carolus,
Carolus is Charles.
Yeah.
So Carolina is technically named for Charles I.
Right.
Smart man.
Yeah.
And then he names the capital Charlestown in honor of Charles II. So that's where the two names come
Gotcha.
from. And he's joined by these 8 Lords Proprietors, but I don't read much about the others. I just read about Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper.
I can imagine he probably outshines them.
And probably outshines them because he's the one who writes the Constitution for Carolina, but it's actually his secretary, John Locke, who writes the Constitution for the Carolinas.
And he's the great philosopher. Locke is the one that came up with the phrase, life, liberty, and property, and which actually inspired Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
He later wrote, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. It was Locke's writing that inspired Jefferson.
And I remember reading the 2 treatises on government. All of Locke's writings were very important in college and in high school. So that was his secretary.
Yeah, interesting.
Founding, and so the founding document of the Carolinas is
pretty well written.
It's very well written, and it's all about creating a government for the people.
Right.
And that was a unique idea at that time.
But one quick thing on Locke. I read that he was a total germaphobe, that he kept like meticulous records of his diet and his exercise and even the temperature of his room.
Is that right?
Yeah. Just a trivial fact there to throw in.
That is really strange.
Yeah, indeed.
And so 2 things that he does, which I think are kind of interesting. And one is the religious tolerance, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very religious, tolerant society. It's the holy city, right? There are churches that you can see the steeples from all over. But the Constitution declared that any gathering of 7 or more men could be considered a religion.
That's interesting.
So the men would all just gather in the bars.
Yeah. And
that was the church, as long as there were more than 7 of them.
Yeah.
And so most Sundays, while they were supposed to be worshiping, they were
at the bar.
They could worship and enjoy a cold beer at the same time.
Ingenious.
This ends up being a complete disaster, and 10 years later, they have to pass legislation that prohibits worshiping in a tavern.
Yeah, who would have thought that would have led to consequences that were unintended?
It is amazing. And some of those early colonists who come to the Carolinas are indentured servants.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a 3 to 7 year term. It's a landowner, and you have to work off your indebtedness. Well, a lot of the women figured out very quickly that if they slept with their debtor, that the years would shrink off. And so when they were, undebted and they were in Charleston, South Carolina all of a sudden, they went into the trade.
Okay.
And so there were a number of brothels in Charleston
that
sprang up as a result of this trend. So Charleston had a lot of churches, a lot of taverns,
and a lot of brothels. That's funny.
And a lot of theaters.
Yep.
And
in fact, actually, I think it boasts the oldest theater in America, the Dock Street Theater. It was founded in 1736, and I believe it's
1736.
Known. Yeah, I think it's known as the oldest theater, or claims to be the oldest theater.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and just real quick before we leave kind of the founding of Charleston, or backing up a step, I should say, I think it's kind of interesting that the Spanish actually tried to, and before the English, the Spanish were there in the 1500s, 1526, yeah. And they founded a colony in the same area called San Miguel de Guadalupe, kind of near, in South Carolina. It failed just after a few months. There was disease, starvation, and mutiny. And in addition to the Spanish, the French also tried to start a colony there. It was called, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was near Paris Island, which was nearby. And it also ended in mutiny and cannibalism. So, those are, 2 risks that
when you go back to our episode on Jekyll Island, the same thing happens here. The water isn't drinkable.
Yeah.
You can't drink the water because it's brackish.
Right.
And so a lot of those early colonists are addicted to rum.
Yeah.
Because that's all they can drink. It's beer and rum. So it doesn't surprise me that
there's
the early settlers were not successful there.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when, it ends in mutiny and cannibalism. Like I said, those are 2 things you cannot insure against. But speaking of insurance, I want to take a moment here to thank another one of our sponsors, which is Sterling Seacrest Pritchard. Sterling Seacrest Pritchard is one of the Southeast's largest privately held insurance brokers, and quite possibly the only agency brave enough to tackle everything from construction mishaps to healthcare misadventures, logistics disasters, real estate whoopsies, and even ransom notes from hackers who apparently never heard of two-factor authentication. When it comes to your home, your business, and all the weirdness that life can throw your way, SSP has you covered, usually before you even realize that you need it. For a friendly guide through, wait, that can actually happen, or do I need a lawyer? Just call 678-424-6503 or visit SSPINS.com. That's SSPINS.com.
Terrific. Thank you. We appreciate your sponsorship.
Indeed.
You know who doesn't need insurance?
Let's hear it.
Pirates.
No.
For a while, the colonies had partnerships with pirates.
Yep.
They were struggling. There wasn't a lot of commerce. And so pirates who would go out and raid these Spanish ships and steal the stuff, they would bring those goods into the port towns, and the port towns would kind of shrug. Unsavory characters, yes. Good for the economy, yes.
For sure.
Yes, too.
Right.
And one of the craziest Charleston stories there is about Blackbeard the pirate.
Yeah.
Two things there. First and foremost, Blackbeard is actually real.
Yeah. Yeah. I know everybody thinks he's a myth, or
right. It's Blackbeard the pirate. It's a fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, Blackbeard was actually Arthur Teach. He was a person. And
now we know.
And the fact that the blockade at Charleston Harbor ends up leading to his death.
And mentioned that he blockaded Charleston Harbor, right? He
blockaded Charleston Harbor. So real quick about Blackbeard. He began as a teenager as a privateer in Queen Anne's War. And turned into a pirate in 1713. And the difference between a pirate and a privateer is a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. One, it's purely legal, and it's kind of interesting. It's a letter of marque, or marquee, MARQUE, and governments would contract these privateers to attack enemy ships and plunder them and whatnot. And but once peace was declared, if these private contractors kept attacking ships or were indiscriminate in the ships that they attacked,
right,
then they were pirates. They were pirates. So,
and Blackbeard is huge. He's 6'2", 250 pounds. This is at a time when most people are 5'6",
right,
in 100 pounds.
Monster of a man.
He was a monster man, and he had this huge, dark, coarse beard that he festooned with colorful ribbons. And when he was at war, when he was attacking someone, he would weave this fuse through his beard and he would light it. So you would see these red flames coming through his beard, and his face would be covered in smoke. He looked like a demon from hell.
That sounds like absolutely.
He had these two pistols across his vest, but he was a master of psychological warfare.
Yeah.
He knew that if he could scare the living crud out of whoever is fighting, they'd be less likely to put up much of a fight.
Sounds like he figured out a pretty good way to do it.
He figured out, and the other thing he did, which was horrendous, is if a crew member had a minor infraction, he would kill him.
Oh, God.
In order to constantly remind his rest of his crew who was in charge.
Yeah, that would do it.
And then, of course, there's that legendary, he would get a glass of rum or a drink of rum, put gunpowder in it, light it on fire, drink it in a single gulp, and put the flaming glass back down on the bar.
Nuts.
I think for our next episode on Charleston, I'm going to make James.
Oh, you're volunteering me?
Now, he was in the Caribbean. He's coming up. His boat was called Queen Anne's Revenge. It was gifted to him by his mentor.
And real quick, the Queen Anne's War, you mentioned that, and he was a pirate or a privateer during that. Just real quick, in terms of context, that Queen Anne's War was the second of 4 French Indian Wars, the French Indian Wars. And as we know from our history books, it was these French Indian Wars that led to the taxation of the colonies. They didn't like it, had the Boston Tea Party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that it was part of those wars that led up to the taxation without representation.
Fantastic. So I'm going to introduce another character named Steed Bonnet, the gentleman pirate Steed Bonnet.
And I'm really impressed, Thornton, that you've gotten all the way through this and you haven't said "arr."
Arr. There it is.
There it is.
Thank you. You tripped me up. Steed Bonnet was a successful plantation owner. He had been orphaned as a child. His parents had a big plantation in Barbados. He inherits that Barbados. His people who took care of him. He raised him. He served in the military, inherits this massive plantation. He marries, and then out of nowhere abandons his wife and children in 1717, buys his own ship, which he calls the Revenge, and sets out, hires a crew of 70 men, and becomes a pirate. And
every middle-aged man's dream, right?
There is no reference anywhere else of a pirate buying his own ship.
Interesting.
The only pirate that ever, showed up to the dealership and was like, I want to be a pirate.
Right.
Can you get, which one of these is the fastest?
Right.
And he was the worst pirate. He wore powdered wigs.
So he suffered from seasickness.
He stayed in his quarters and read books all day long.
Interesting.
He didn't drink.
Yeah.
He stayed separate from his men.
Yeah.
But he was successful. He took down a few ships, and he had this deal in Charleston,
right,
where he would deal with some of the private merchants, and he would steal goods, and it would pass through Charleston, and he had this great relationship. And so there he is, anchored off the harbor, when suddenly the Queen Anne's Revenge comes blowing past him, and Blackbeard circles around and boards his ship and realizes very quickly that Steed Bonnet is not much of a pirate at all.
Yeah.
And he kind of sizes him up, and he butters him up and says, look, you don't like being a captain of a ship. You come aboard my ship. I'll put one of my men on your ship, and you can be a captain of leisure.
It's kind of like the first private equity venture, right?
And a few weeks after that, Blackbeard blockades the Charleston Harbor.
Yeah. Which is a big deal, because Charleston, even at that time, was one of the South's busiest, if not the South's, busiest ports. Known for rice and indigo and unfortunately the slave trade as well. And by this time, mid-1700s or early 1700s, it's one of the richest, but also one of the most unequal cities, in the colonies. One of the things that they imported, this was like by 1750, locals imported not just European furniture, but also entire buildings.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that work? Is that IKEA?
They must, like IKEA, the first IKEA, if you will. Yeah.
I would like a 2-story house, please.
Yeah, exactly. Mail order.
And this is in May 1718. Blackbeard has a few ships. He has Bonnet's ship, the Revenge.
And so his ship is the Revenge, and Blackbeard's is Queen Anne's Revenge. Interesting.
And he shuts off all commerce. He takes all of the goods off of the ship. He kidnaps one of the provincial Grand Council members named Samuel Wragg. And his men just run amok in the streets of Charleston. They steal whatever they want.
But one of the things they needed, right, is medical
supplies. Which, they needed medical supplies, and that was one of the things they were holding the city for ransom. But anybody who dared to stand up to the pirates was attacked.
Yeah.
They just menaced Charleston for several days until Robert Johnson finally pays up to free the hostages. He sails out of the harbor with, I think, 1,500 pounds of gold and silver, as well as all of his medical supplies.
Yeah.
And so he
pretty successful venture.
A great venture. He's sailing north. He has this place on the Outer Banks. It's called Ocracoke Island.
Yeah, we know Ocracoke, yeah.
Ocracoke. And it's called Teach's Hole is back in there. It's this warren of waterways, but he's found a place where he just can repair his boat, he can rest his men, and it's known as Teach's Cove. And he has this relationship with the governor of North Carolina where he can get a pardon anytime that he wants.
Interesting.
Because he's basically paying the governor off.
Well, there's also, talking about a hideout, there's also a Blackbeard Island on Georgia. Off of Georgia, yeah. And
I did not know that until right now.
Yeah.
History for Cocktail Party.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, that was not this. We talked about this in a different episode, but that was when yellow fever came to the States in like 1918 or so. No, actually, I'm trying to think what date it was, but it was one of the first, times where they would put sick people on Blackbeard Island.
Oh, right.
An infirmary there.
Quarantine.
Yeah. And so Blackbeard Island off of Georgia is named for him as well. And I believe because that was one of his hideouts. Yeah.
But Teach's Hole is the one that it is important for our story because they're heading north. He's got Bonnet with him, and he tells Bonnet, he says, look, we've got to lay low for a while. That's just you go ashore and you see about getting us a pardon and getting us resupplied. and we'll just no more pirating for a little bit.
Right.
Well, the second Bonnet gets off the boat and starts walking, Blackbeard,
it's on.
He takes all the supplies off of Bonnet's ship. He scuttles it. He leaves all of Bonnet's men stranded on a sandbar, and he's out
of there.
And he completely turns tide and runs to teach his hole. And
well, what do you expect from a pirate?
From a pirate.
Yeah.
And so poor the gentleman pirate, the fancy lad, Steed Bonnet, returns, and his ship is gone.
Yeah.
He can see his men, but somehow he manages to rescue his men, and he is in the midst of restoring his boat when Colonel William Rhett, who is sent by South Carolina's government to track the pirates down after Charleston. And so he finds poor Steed Bonnet with his broken boat, and he immediately sets up attacks. His boat gets stuck. Bonnet's boat is stuck. They're both kind of scuttled. But eventually he does take Bonnet back to Charleston to stand trial.
Gotcha.
Now, I told you about those merchants who did business with him.
Right.
They were very worried that when Steed Bonnet was put before a judge, he would
squeal on them.
These things. So they arranged to have him removed from the prison in the old exchange building and put into a mansion under, house arrest.
Yeah.
They dress him in women's clothing. Yeah. They put him in a boat, and he sails across to Sullivan's Island where he hangs out. Well, Colonel Rhett does not like this one bit.
Yeah.
He
still doesn't end well for him.
He goes and gets him. He tracks him down, I think, after a few days. He's still dressed as a woman when he gets him, brings him back.
Did he like dressing as a woman, you think? Once he got there, it seems like he would have changed clothes.
He was a fancy lad.
Okay.
He had the white powder wig.
Okay.
So he finally is held accountable, and he is hung in White Point Gardens on December 10th, 1718. Now, that is after the end of our dear friend Blackbeard, but he meets his demise as well.
Interesting.
And that's because Blackbeard cannot stand not pirating. Shortly after, as he's heading back up the coast, he takes down 2 French ships that are heading to Virginia, and they're filled with sugar and cocoa. So he takes all this sugar and cocoa off of one ship, he puts all the men on the other, he sends them back to France, and he shows up back to the North Carolina governor and says, "Hey, I just found this abandoned ship with all this stuff on it." And the governor says, "Great." They split it, and he is a very, very happy camper. He is loaded down with goods. He is in a celebratory mood.
Yeah.
He goes to teach his hole, and they have the Ochre Coke orgy.
Oh, man.
Every pirate in the world comes to teach his hole. It is this bacchanalian party.
Yeah.
They are drinking. They're more Calico Jack shows up. It's like something out of Pirates of the Caribbean. They just come up and they're just having this great time. Well, the governor of North Carolina knows that they're coming up the coast. And
he's prepared.
He says, he gets 2 ships.
Yeah.
Go get this guy.
Yeah.
After what he did in Charleston, he needs to be taken down. And he sends a fellow named Maynard,
of the Royal Navy.
The Royal Navy goes and they know where he is. They had captured his quartermaster.
So they found out where Teach's hole was.
They found, because they tortured his they captured his quartermaster, tortured him.
Okay.
Knew where Teach's hole is, so they sneak in. And I mean, it's right at dusk, and they see the sails coming up the corner. They're all drunk as heck.
Yeah.
They've just been partying for days on end. And they rally, they get up. Maynard's ship runs aground, of course, because it's really hard to navigate back in there.
And you're sailing.
And Blackbeard actually gets up and running. They come side by side. It's this incredibly pitched battle, muskets, cannons, everything going off. And it ends with a duel on the deck between Maynard and Blackbeard. Blackbeard finally succumbs after being shot 5 times and suffering 20 sword wounds.
Holy cow.
And he is beheaded.
Yeah. Took a lot to bring him down, didn't it? So I guess if you're 6'2", 250 pounds, you better come loaded for bear, you know?
That's my question. How big was Maynard? I need to do a little bit more research. Big dude. And so that's kind of the end of the golden age of piracy.
Yeah.
It faded very quickly. The gentleman pirates.
But it went out with a bang.
Yeah. I mean, they had to really track him down. But it's this great story and one of the history of Charleston, and just It's incredible.
Well, I've got a few kind of fun facts about Charleston, maybe a little bit lighter, or at least some of them are, than the murder of Blackbeard.
I forgot about the fact that Maynard hung Blackbeard's head from the bow of his ship,
of course,
in order to collect the bounty.
Yeah, and we probably saw that represented in a movie, or should.
Somewhere.
Yeah, indeed. My turn. All right. Well, again, a little bit of a lighter note. And these are in no particular order, but the gardenia, famous gardenia flower, everybody loves, southern plant, I think associated, right? Mostly
Best
with the
smell
sound.
in the world.
Absolutely. Well, it was named after a Charleston physician who imported it to the United States, a Dr. Alexander Garden. That was actually his name.
His name was Garden.
Yeah, exactly. So this was the gardenia. And then this was in 1754. He imported it from South Africa, renamed it the gardenia. And the rest of the world, I think maybe even to this day, still knows it as the Cape jasmine.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
They don't know it as the gardenia.
I mean, feel free to fact check me on that, but that's what my research is telling me. Another thing, you mentioned Barbados when you were talking about Blackbeard and Bonnet.
Bonnet was from Barbados.
Yeah, and so there's an interesting correlation there. Charleston is identical in layout, actually, to Bridgetown in Barbados, and the reason is there were Brits in Barbados, and they actually moved up, or some of them moved up to Charleston in 1670. They were searching for supplies, and apparently the Brits in Barbados had been there since 1627. They discovered sugarcane in Charleston and settled. This is not to contradict what you're saying in terms of the Lord Proprietors. I read that Barbados provided the people, plantation model, and city plan, but the Lord Proprietors provided the royal charter, encouragement, and financing. But apparently there are a lot of streets in Charleston that are named after areas in Barbados, and that there's a lot of similarities between the two places, which makes sense.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Also, the kind of to shed some light on the famous pineapple symbol that you see in Charleston,
that fountain right there on the battery.
Yeah, and you also see it on gate posts and door knockers and whatnot. Well, Charleston is known for this pineapple symbol. Hopefully that we're talking about the right side up one, not the upside down one. And the reason for it was a symbol of hospitality. It started in the 1600s when sea captains would come home from sea and they placed pineapples on their porches to welcome guests that they had not seen since they had gone out to sea. Yeah, right. I do have one on the gory side here. Probably doesn't match Blackbeard, but Charleston was apparently home to America's first female serial killer.
What?
Yeah, Lavinia Fisher, and who was hanged in 1820 at the age of 26. Wow. And the story goes that Lavinia and her husband operated an inn in the area, the 6 Mile Wayfarer House, which was 6 miles north of Charleston. And Lavinia would invite lone travelers in and send them up to rooms with poisoned tea. And then her husband would go up and beat them to death. So it was kind of a joint effort there.
Wow.
Another effort or version of the story is that Lavinia would go into their room and pull a lever and drop the victim into the pit.
Oh,
yeah, into a pit. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that one's kind of cool. And in one incident, she and her husband choked a man and smashed his head through a window, but he managed somehow to escape. He didn't fall into the pit or wasn't sent into the pit, and he told authorities. And that's one of the ways that they got caught. Another victim survived because he hated tea, apparently.
And he refused to drink it?
Well, he poured it out when Lavinia wasn't looking.
Oh, wow.
Went up to his room. He was sleeping by the door rather than in the bed. So when she pulled the lever, he didn't fall into the pit. He escaped. And anyway, they caught him.
Lucky guy.
Yeah, exactly. And also lucky he didn't probably like coffee better than tea. And it worked out for him. So she and her husband are found guilty and hanged. And that's the first female serial killer in America. Also, kind of interesting, Charleston claims to be the birthplace of golf.
The birthplace
of golf.
In the United States.
In the United States. Okay. In the United States. And in fact, it's even It's even on their license plate or some of their license plates. It says first in golf. And
North Carolina has first in flight.
Right.
South Carolina has first in golf.
That's right. And so, or at least claim to. And they say that, golf was first played on land in Charleston called Holston Green. And Holston Green later became an actual golf club. It's existing today. It was formed in 1786 and is America's oldest golf club. But apparently that's not true.
What?
In terms of them being first.
You just told the whole story.
Yeah, well, apparently that's not true. I happened to run in just by luck to rules officiant at Augusta National. And I wasn't at Augusta National, but he rules officiant.
Or wearing a master shirt for listeners at home.
Yeah. Well, the meeting took place outside of Augusta, not at Augusta National. He's a golf historian or self-proclaimed golf historian. And I just happened to mention this episode that we were doing on Charleston. And without prompting, he says, Charleston claims to be the first in golf, but it's not true.
It's not true.
Savannah, Georgia was the first. Yeah. And so Mr. McClure proceeds to tell me that in 1733, when Oglethorpe sailed over here on the Anne, the good ship Anne, to found Savannah in the colony of Georgia, on board were two Scottish Freemason, David Dias and his brother. And the Freemasons from Scotland were guardians of the game of golf.
Right.
And they brought with them they used for golf balls back then called featheries and golf implements, meaning some type of golf club. And these two Freemasons and others purportedly played the first golf on a high bluff in Savannah, about where the fifth hole is at where the current Savannah Country Club is. Yeah, I kid you not. And apparently, when they were renovating the course, the old superintendent,
they found one of your first balls.
They did,
no.
and they showed it, and she showed it to Mr. McClure, and said, then evidence that
unbelievable.
And so somehow it had survived. It was uncovered, but somehow it had survived
because it was a rock.
Maybe so. Well, they call them featheries, so
right.
But so one of these Freemasons, one of the brothers, Daniel Dease, apparently became a merchant in Charleston about 10 years after he, was landed in Savannah, and sometime around 1743 or between 1743 and 1749, Mr. Diaz orders golf implements and featheries from the old country, to be shipped over here. And they arrived. These golf balls or featheries and clubs arrived in the late 1740s, and that's when it's said that players began playing on Harleston Green. Yeah, in Charleston. And Harleston Green was part of the property that was owned by John Harleston, who died in the Revolutionary War, and his widow actually allowed or invited these folks to play golf there. What stood for as golf at that time. So. Another myth dispelled and just by luck.
You had me. I was like, oh my God, the first golf, and it's wrong.
It's wrong. Exactly.
Well, hopefully we are setting the record straight on history for cocktail parties. We'll get into our second episode on Charleston, South Carolina, where we'll talk about Fort Sumter and some other interesting tidbits.
Indeed.
Join us next time. Thank you for listening.
This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.